The zones of regulation is one of the programs that we might use quite often with children who are sort of maybe 6 years up, or we might use it with kids who are younger, who are perhaps too literal for programs like zones of regulation, how does your engine run? So the zones of regulation, one of the things I really like this is that it breaks it down into 4 zones. So you've got your blue zone, which is when you're feeling tired, sick, bored, sort of
moving slowly,
yeah,
low on energy,
forgetting your words, not on your place. And then
Brain
you
freezes.
go, and then the next zone is your green zone, where you're concentrating, listening, thinking. You're in that right state to be able to do what you need to do in that task. But it's got this next zone, which is the yellow zone, which is your escalation, I suppose, where you're starting to escalate. So where you're starting to feel a bit worried, you're starting to feel a bit frustrated, a bit annoyed. So things are starting to pull into that red zone, which is that when you kind of lost the plot, where you're angry, hitting out, yelling, really anxious, out of control, silly. So
it's your lid and no control over your thinking or what you're doing.
Yeah, this is what we find is so relevant for a lot of kids. Like, you can talk about the blue zone, the green zone, and the red zone, but it's actually that yellow zone and catching it before you escalate that's really important. Because when you're in that red zone, there's not much you can do about it. You kind of just got to wait for the escalation to sort of slow down. I mean, there's a few strategies you can put in place, but it's actually capturing that yellow zone and widening that yellow zone so they spend more time in that yellow, so they can bring themselves back down to green.
Yeah, to work through what's going on for them, so it doesn't become a huge thing for them.
Yeah. So this is a great cognitive program to help give that language and to help get them thinking about the different zones and how they're feeling without putting all that language into it, like emotions, because different ways that people feel emotions are very different from somebody else. So just saying the color is easy. And also if you're feeling in the yellow or red zone, it's a bit harder to talk about how you're feeling. Where if you can just say to someone, I'm feeling yellow, and they know exactly what that means and they can give you strategies, then that just cuts out some of that red tape of getting to feel better.
Yeah, exactly. And it means that then you don't waste half a day trying to help yourself to calm back down again. You can catch it right in that moment so you can keep going.
Because sometimes when kids are in the yellow zone and they start talking about how they're feeling, and then parents aren't understanding or teachers aren't understanding how they're feeling, and when that becomes that mismatch of understanding, then they just go into the red. Whereas if they could say I'm feeling yellow, and they put a strategy in place, then they go down to the green so much quicker. So this is a program that we use a lot. It's got a lot of lessons, and teachers can use the lessons and buy the book with the disc that has all the handouts and worksheets in it as well. We tend to just pull out maybe a couple of sheets, like the Zones of Regulation handout, which has a picture of all the zones. It's the most used one that we've got. Also one that maps the zones across the day, so that looks at all the things that happen for that day for that child, and they can say whether that thing made them feel blue, green, yellow, red. And also you might just use it more just for the language of it rather than doing the program itself.
Within the program there are some really good strategies as well, but yeah, because we try and really pick them out for that child, we don't necessarily do the whole program from start to finish, but I believe it's actually in line with the WA curriculum as well.
A social emotional thinking program.
Yeah.
So we kind of use it as a thinking framework for our body regulation based work, I guess is the best way to explain it. So we might use it as a way of saying you use this body based strategy to help you move between these different zones.
Yeah, some of the strategies that are within the program though is your inner critic and your inner coach. So that's to help you think about your thinking. So your inner coach is the positive self-talk, and the inner critic is your unhelpful. You don't really get anywhere with those ones. And then some other ones are being able to scale the size of your problem throughout the day, so you have